Today's training session is about managing applications. Last time, we talked about how to create a term and periods for a new scheme. And today's session, we're going to concentrate on managing applications about opening a scholarship online for students to apply. So let's find the scholarship that we used last time. So we got placement grant that we used last time. So we found the UniSA placement grant. Found the term that we created last time, which is called 2019. In order for students to apply for a scholarship, we need to have questions set up. So click questions. As you can see, we have no questions here. So, all right, we're ready to add questions. The order here just means that the order of the questions for student to see. So you can always change the order of the questions if you want. So at the start, I'll put question number 1. To find an existing question, you can use a magnifying glass and search based on the description of the question. So, for example, if I want to use a citizenship question, I just type citizen. So there are 12 questions came up, and I'll choose the one that I want, number 51. And I click add. Now the question is added. So I'll do the same to add another question, which is question number 2. And I think I know what I want. So the questions that I wanted, if you know the question ID, you can always input the question ID. So in this instance, if I don't know the question ID, this question that I want to add is about financial situation of a student. So, all right, I'll choose number 274. Just add. So now 2 questions are added. So you can continue to add more questions if you want, but for this instance, I'm happy with 2 questions. All right. So you can repeat the process. But now the next step after adding questions is to check the validation of the answers. So click the answer ID. So you can see there are 2 answers already been validated. So if that's right, just leave as they are. If they're not right, you can always change it. Say this one, we don't want this answer to be valid answer. Just untick that and click save. And then go back. You need to have at least minimum 1 valid answer for each question. All right, let's move on to second question. All right, this is a good example because no answers is validated. All right, so I need to do the validation one by one. So the first answer, I'm happy to make it valid, and same with the second, and same with the third. All right. Say, for example, if you're not happy with the questions that you've added, you can always click remove button to get rid of the question. All right, so that's all about adding questions. Actually, there's one more step before we finish the whole process for adding questions, which is, you can see there are quite a few different columns here. Eligibility, scoring, and documentation required. You need to have the eligibility checkbox checked. So you have to have that down in order to help students to apply properly, because you need to determine their eligibility. If you're not clicking that, everyone will be ineligible. We have the ineligible questions straight away. All right, let's just have that. So if you need to have documentation added for a question, so you need to attach that. But for this question, I don't need any documentation. So just click Save, and that's all done for the first question. For the second question, I need to do the same. And click Save. Okay. So if you do need supporting documentation for that, for this 274, this question, I need to do one more thing before I can tick the box. You go to the term details page and click Edit Details, because the system requires you to add a documentation due date. So I just randomly put a due date. Say I want to open it to next week, and I'll close it in November. Documentation due date will also be November, which is the same with the closing date. You don't have to be the same, make them same. Documentation deadline sometimes can be, say, 1 week after your closing date. All right, so let's go back to questions. Click Edit Details and tick the documentation required box and click Save. Okay, this is a bad example. This question didn't have any documentation required attached. So in this instance, if you have nothing displayed here on the required documentation column, contact SAS and we can add the documentation required for you. Because even you tick that, if there's nothing attached to this question, students still won't supply any documentation to you. So now our questions are added. I just want to show you what it looks like if documentation required is displayed here. Say I just want to add another question. Okay, so because this question I know have some documentation required. And I click Save. Oh, this is another bad example. Okay, let me find another one. So I need to show you what it looks like if there is a documentation. And you can see I'm very desperate to have that shown to you. Okay. Okay, this is assessment form. Please note that this is test environment, so it's not everything is the same. Okay, lucky I found one. All right, let's just add that. Okay, so if I go back to the refresh my screen, or just click another tab and come back to questions tab again, it's still not showing. Okay. I need to okay, I know why, because there's nothing is valid. Sorry. Okay, It's not my lucky day today. Just say 0. Okay. Yep. Okay, so now you can see that. Now I'm happy. So you can see there is a documentation required. So this is a document student going to send to you. And yeah. And you may ask what the scoring column means. Scoring is used when you have a large number of applications. We at SAS use that a lot because at some stage we can have more than a few hundred applications. But if you don't expect a large number, say more than 50 or 30, I don't suggest you use that. Scoring can help with the assessment of the application because you can assign different scores to different answers student given, and just to help you speed up your assessment process. But you don't have to use that if you have like a small number of applications and a small number of final recipients needed. And yeah, but do contact us if you do need that function, and we're happy to show you. So that's all about adding questions and answers. Thank you.